Should you play Borderlands 3 in 2024? Short answer, yes. Long answer, yes. Borderlands gave birth to the looter shooter genre back in 2009, and Borderlands 3 is their biggest package to date. There's no other game like it. Taking on bosses and fighting through areas packed with enemies for that perfect legendary item to round off your latest build is the incredibly satisfying core that is baked deep into this game. You can play it alone or even with friends, which I still think is something my parents made up to try to get me to go outside. Released in September 2019, it's over 4 years old now, but the game is just as good as when it came out. Oh wait, actually it's a hell of a lot better, with way more content added free of charge. If you weren't following it at the time, you wouldn't know just how much it's grown, and anything negative that you relate to it probably isn't as big of a deal now. The main negative is the story, which is unfortunate, and probably the main thing that will turn you away, but I've always said that a Borderlands game truly starts once the campaign is over. If you can make it through the 23 story missions with minimal cringe, not taking it too seriously, and focusing on just how good the gunplay is, you'll be ready to start farming that orange gold as you push towards the level cap of 72. And don't worry, there is plenty of content to get you there with 4 main story DLCs, which are all many times improved over the main story content wise, and 2 further DLCs plus a lot more, which we'll touch on later. After the main story is complete, you'll unlock mayhem levels, which add a twist to the gameplay with various effects that'll change the face of each encounter. As the difficulty slider increases, enemies will get tougher, but the gear they drop will also get better. Certain weapons are locked behind mayhem levels 4 or 6, and I encourage everyone to try and push that meter up as high as they can. If you want an option without any modifiers but still the most challenging enemies, there's that too, thanks to Mayhem 11, which I tend to play on. It's within Mayhem mode where the end game opens up, where you can truly feel what each of the 4 Vault Hunters are made of. You've got Zane the Operative, a speed demon who can dominate the Borderlands with just about any weapon. Mode's the Gunner with the mech that'll put Iron Man to shame, and an affinity with explosives that'll make Oppenheimer look like Barbie. There's Amara the Siren who, with her siren powers, can turn any battle in her favour, and of course Flak, who hits harder than a freight train and can summon a pet to do the dirty work for you. Each of them feel unique, with 3 base game skill trees, and even a 4th if you include the Director's Cut DLC add-on. The variety is staggering. There are so many ways to play, not just across the Vault Hunters, but within each one. And it's that progressive improvement of your character, of you as a player, that is so satisfying. Farming that key item, respecting your skill points, growing and understanding what you need to be better, deal more damage, or survive for longer, it's the heart of the Borderlands franchise, and it's incredibly alive within Borderlands 3. In the base game there is over 200 legendaries split across weapons, shields, grenades, artifacts, and class mods, but with all 6 DLCs, there's over 500. Think about that, 500 uniquely crafted pieces of legendary gear. Guns that spawn lava pools beneath the feet of your foes, grenades that spawn ghosts spooking your enemies to death, and shields that summon supernovas that freeze your enemies. That's just 3. I only gave you 3, but I could give you hundreds more. If you're worried about the viability of these legendaries, thinking maybe only a small percentage are actually useful, well, think again. I would say 90% of them are incredibly useful, able to dish out good damage, or serving a purpose within a particular build. Take my other videos as an example on the matter, you can get pretty much all of them to sing, and it's always soul music. The guns feel fantastic, obliterating packs of enemies, demolishing bosses, it all feels great. It is a marked improvement on other entries in the series, and if you ask me, well makes up for any of the narrative shortcomings. The incredible range within each of the 5 item categories is amazing. They're all unique, across the board. Well, if I'm honest, there is a tiny bit of overlap, but for the most part, each item has its place. One will shine within this setup, another will shine in another. But where can you find this loot? Well, there's over 150 named or respawnable bosses that are dedicated to dropping them. It's not completely random. If you want a specific legendary weapon or whatever, there is generally an enemy with an increased chance to drop it, which makes farming your gear a whole lot more forgiving. No more hours wasted, lives ruined, because you just can't pull Excalibur out of the stone. If you ask nicely, it'll remove itself, and there you have it. If you're one that likes the grind, some weapons are locked behind certain formidable bosses or mayhem levels, as mentioned before, so there is a certain tiered approach when it comes to farming, but it doesn't get in the way of things. Now that you have your loot, what do you do with it? Well, there's 6 proving grounds where you can take on 3 areas packed with mobs before a final boss fight, rewarding you for how well you completed the trial. You'll also have access to 3 Circle of Slaughters, which house 5 waves of enemies, and again a final boss and a chest reward if you manage to complete it. You also have the takedowns, which are kind of like proving grounds but taken to the max. You're no longer judged on how you perform, but whether you survive, with not 1 but 2 boss fights which hold some of the most powerful loot in the game. You have the Melee 1 takedown, my and everyone's personal favourite, or the Guardian takedown, which I would argue is the hardest piece of content in the game and also the most frustrating. Just try not to fall off. If that wasn't enough, the designer's cut also offers a new roguelike mode called Arms Race, which spawns you in with no weapons or skill points. You're just a regular nun without a gun, and you'll have to make do with what you find inside. It's a pain in the booty to farm, but as always, that's where the best weapons are. If you still want more, the designer's cut introduced a challenge system where you select a vault card to level up, and each card has a number of cosmetic rewards, and also a few legendary items which you can redeem. There's the diamond loot room as well, where you can spend diamond keys to reveal a wall full of loot. There's also, I know there's more, 3 limited time events which are no longer limited. They can be activated at any time from the main menu. You have the Bloody Harvest, which will see enemies haunted by ghouls, which when killed will see a spirit released from their body. One might even be a loot ghost that'll drop, well, loot when you kill it. There's also a cool location tied to it with a unique boss fight and a brand new terror system which gives you a whole new way to play. Broken Hearts Day is similar, but the hearts have varying effects instead of shooting at you, and there's no unique location or boss fight. Last but not least, we have the Cartel event, everyone's favy with the Gravy, which sees you take on a mob boss in his mansion. There's a lot of mini bosses in this one, which means more legendaries than the other events, and the mini bosses and enemies spawn in the overworld too, which just increases the mayhem. I have it on all the time. Overall, in the almost 4.5 years since it's been out, Borderlands 3 is still a great game, which is well worth your time. Once things click and you understand your build and what you want to accomplish, it's incredibly satisfying to see yourself deal more damage, drop that boss quicker, and survive for longer. So if that sounds like you, maybe you should give it a go. It's never too late.